tracking a major shift in global migration that has hit home hard for thousands of Indian families. For decades, Canada was seen as the ultimate land of opportunity, but that door is now swinging shut with the enactment of Bill C12, formerly known as the Strengthening Canada's Immigration System and Borders Act. This law represents the most significant overhaul of Canada's asylum and visa rules in 20 years. Enacted in March 2026, the law is a direct response to a massive backlog of cases and growing concerns over the misuse of the asylum route. The system reset introduces a strict one-year bar, meaning anyone seeking refugee status must file their claim within 12 months of entering the country, a move that applies even to those who arrived as far back as the year 2020. For those entering irregularly from the US, the window is even tighter. You have just 14 days to apply or lose your chance. The impact on the Indian community is staggering. India remains the largest source of migrants to Canada, and consequently, it's the hardest hit. Currently, an estimated 30,000 migrants are at immediate risk of deportation, including roughly 9,000 students from Punjab who are being flagged as they attempt to switch from study permits to asylum claims. This comes alongside a massive visa crunch, with study permits for Indian students plunging by nearly 50%. The 2026 cap has been tightened further to just 155,000 new arrivals, and in some categories, refusal rates have soared as high as 75%. But this is not just a Canadian story. We are witnessing a coordinated global crackdown. From the UK's ban on student dependence and higher salary thresholds to Australia's stricter English language norms and the US slashing asylum entries, the Western dream is becoming harder to reach. Even Ireland and New Zealand are capping temporary workers to protect their local infrastructure. So the big questions that we are asking, with Bill C12's strict 14-day and one-year deadlines, has Canada finally closed the loophole for those using the asylum system as a backdoor for residency? With nearly 10,000 students and seekers from Punjab alone facing deportation risk, is the Indian community bearing the brunt of Canada's policy failures? We have Ricky Chopra, international lawyer and immigration expert, and Surinder Singh Lali, foreign affairs expert for Canada and the US, joining us on the broadcast. Thank you, both of you, for joining us. Ricky Chopra, let me begin by asking you a straightforward question. Talk to us about Bill C12 and tell us how fair or unfair it is that Canada is imposing this legislation at this stage now.
Now, Krishna, I think, first of all, we have to see whether this bill, which is now an act actually holds any water when we talk about Constitution of Canada, when we talked about the 1951 Convention by the UN, to which Canada is a party, and which says there should be no timeline as far as, claiming asylum is concerned. So, clearly this act fails these two tests on moral accountability, on constitutional examination. So that's my stand, that it fails these two very, very important parameters. Now, coming back to why Canada is doing it, is of course it has its own reasons. They want to make the administration safer. They want to see that chemicals like fentanyl are not crossing the borders. They want to see that people who are misusing the law, they're not able to do that. But they're forgetting a very important point, which is the rule of law. And the rule of law internationally says that it's every nation's duty to protect someone who's running away from somewhere and has come to your refuge. So in that way, I see this act will face a lot of opposition, both in Canada and everywhere else. Where you see Indian students, especially from Punjab, they go there in thousands. They go there in thousands, and suddenly you kind of do a crackdown on them. This is not very unfair as well as as far as humanitarian grounds are concerned. But even if we talk only of rule of law, you cannot just suddenly change the law and have the students go for a panic attack. So that's what my initial stand on this is. Though I agree that it will bring about a lot of good changes in law, good changes in procedures, but the intention of the law has to be seen, and the repercussions to it have to be seen. And I think this is where it fails very, very badly.
Okay, fair enough. Surinder Singh Lali, I want to ask you a straightforward question, because there's nearly 10,000 students from Punjab who are going to be affected. There are many from Punjab who take the right legal route for immigration into Canada, and there are many who don't. So this law, in a sense, Canada will say the attempt is to stop the abuse of the asylum system. And in that sense, this could be beneficial for those Indians who are going to Canada for the right reasons in the right way.
Thank you, Krishna. It's a pleasure and honor for me to be here. And trust me, I'm going to give you a straightforward answer too, because I went there as a student and I see. I mean, because somewhere I'll have to agree with Ricky and somewhere I'll have to disagree with him. Because let me tell you one thing. Not only is the world getting more fraught and polarized, and while the politicians in these developed economies are demonizing immigrants, absolutely for the wrong reasons, but let's understand, Krishna, a lot of people from Punjab who've gone, and I was one of them, but I went the legit way, have gone there totally for the wrong reasons. I mean, they simply wanted to get into the borders of Canada. It doesn't matter, even if they went through a puppy mill university. What's a puppy mill university? These are fake universities where, diplomas are handed out which have no value once you've sold your mother and father's land and jewelry and gone from Punjab, and lo and behold, you realize after 4 years of unfortunately, living in misery, living like sardines, getting financially and sexually exploited by the agents, by the community, by the employers, and then you realize that that degree has no value. So, unfortunately, there has been a slip on both the sides, because these are nothing else but visa factories. So, for some reason, I have to agree with Canada, because let's understand it's their country. And yes, there have been popular universities which have been on the wrong side of the law, but that's for them. But how do you justify, Krishna, almost 2 to 6 body bags come every month from Punjab, from Canada? Can you imagine? Because these are kids who are getting exploited and they are living in very dismal conditions. They are suffering from mental health issues, sexual exploitations, and I'm going to just add one more point to it, because I've been there and I live there. A lot of the fringe rogue that the Khalistanis exploit are also these vulnerable people who they use under the bogey of free speech to have them gather around the gurdwaras and the basakis, and which has actually ended up jeopardizing our relationship between two developed economies. There's a very large diaspora, and these handful of these fringe rogue gay elements have been able to thus far sabotage the relationship and the interest of diaspora to English-speaking fellow democracies. So it's not that simple. That's the point I'm trying to make, Krishna.
It's definitely not that simple. It's a complex issue. Ricky Chopra, what does this bill do for Indians in Canada waiting for their permanent residency to come through, and also Indians aspiring to go to Canada?
All right. So first of all, I agree very, very minimally with Surinder there. So first, let me rebut a little, and then I'll come to the point. See, there was a law always there in existence. There was a refugee board where one could go, kind of do the trial. Now it's done away with for a category of people who are a little late doing what steps they have to take. Now there's just a pre-removal risk assessment. So the law was always there. Now the law's teeth have been taken away, which were in favor of the students in India or many other parties likewise. Now, how they will be affected is, first of all, you're going to not see a lot of immigration there. Because if a country can change laws without taking any expert opinion from the asylum experts, either from the UN or other organs of the world, then they can do anything, anytime, right? This is how you lose trust in a country. This is how, and these days, basically no one is listening to any of the international bodies anyway. So I just hope that Canada does not continuously take this, way and go forward on this. Now, secondly, how students who are there will be impacted. Now, see, students go there, they do their studies, they apply for, living there as a work permit so that they could work. Then they apply for residentship. There was another way to apply for asylum. There are cases where students who are very, very truly in requirement of an asylum. Now, just because they have missed the deadline and you don't have a board there now, which was like a court, it was like a quasi court. You've done away with that, and then you say that the officers who are there to control the borders will analyze whether you have the right to stay or not. They'll do an analysis of it straight away. So, of course, students who've gone there, who studied there, who've gone there with kind of the absolute guidance under the law, now suddenly find themselves without any help from the law there. So I'll say, if you talk strictly about the law, keeping emotions aside, this is a step which is not only retrospective, which it is, but it's very, very bad, because I don't think any international expert has given an opinion in its favor, or they actually took any kind of guidance while drafting it.
Okay. Surinder Singh Lali, then the obvious question that begs to be asked is this: is it the end of the Canada dream, as it were? Because, does it going to mean a rerouting of those dreams? Because dreams don't go anywhere, just that they'll have to have a different destination.
That's a brilliant question, and I believe that the asylum law for India should be looked into. We are a vibrant democracy. We have more elections than we probably ought to have. And why are we seeking asylum from a country like India, where we have the fifth largest economy and the largest growing economy? So I'm not too sure with a democracy like India, Canada needs to have an asylum law, because that's where the Pandora's box opens up, and that's where the key elements, the agents and the law enforcement and other people tend to exploit these vulnerable people who went from Punjab. Unfortunately, did not do their due diligence on the kind of university they were going into. I mean, I've also been to the US. I went there as a student, but I did my math and my rationality and my prudence and saw the university I'm going into. You're going into a university which is no standing, which doesn't even have a campus, because the objective was simply to give your IELTS and just land on Canadian soil, and then by hook or crook we get married, or we take political asylum or something under the sun. We don't want to come back. But honestly, I feel there are better educational institutes in India now than even in Canada, barring the few top ones and the Ivy Leagues in Canada and America. The quality of education is far less expensive in India. I mean, I'm blessed with 3 beautiful children, and I told them, you have to go there for your master's, because it's too expensive to do your bachelor's and it takes too long. And even after doing your bachelor's, you still don't get yourself a good job. So somewhere, if I'm not aware, if I'm living in ignorance of the competence and the kind of university I'm going into, I can throw everything on the Canadian government. It's their land, it's their monkeys, their circus. Yes, these kids are going to get a lawyer and you can challenge it into court. But let's understand, all is not kosher here, Krishna.
Okay. It's not kosher here, but Ricky Chopra, this will definitely make aspiring students in India, forget those who are already in the process, they'll have to go through and finish the process, but those who are waiting on the sidelines, the teenagers looking to see where they can take their dreams to, where they can have their dream life. And when Canada was a given option, those plans and those minds are going to change.
Absolutely. See, US has been, very tough recently. And most of the students, what I observe here, in family, friends, and even otherwise, in my practice, a lot of students were, looking at Canada as a very viable option. Now, if you close the doors for Canada, what is left there? Just Europe, I believe, and probably Singapore. And I think the Canadian-Indian relationship has been so strong, this will really hamper it. And I genuinely believe that some steps are taken back. I know protests are happening there. They should be very peaceful. But I really believe that people and students, especially from India and other countries, should be given a platform to raise their concern and their voice there. Because, see, it's not just students. They're small kids. They are people from LGBTQ community. There are people who are facing physical and mental issues. Everyone is impacted, right? Who's looking after them now? No one. There's no board where they can go to. And if they go to federal court, I'm pretty sure that's a very long route. So just handing over all the power to some paperwork, which is to be done with the border security officers, I don't think that makes sense internationally under any convention.
Okay.
So I believe that Canada must reset this again and should open a new door, get in some new amendment, and do the right.
Okay. Surinder Singh Lali, assuming that Canada doesn't, I want to know what's going to happen with the people already in Canada trying to make their residency count, trying to get a green card finally. I've seen so many of YouTube videos of people who have chosen the decision to come back to Punjab and are doing now videos from Punjab saying why I came back from Canada. Apart from the feared deportations because of this bill, do you fear a large-scale mass exodus back from Canada to Punjab and the rest of India?
Ricky, personally, you raised a brilliant question, and I'm going to do a Punjabi lesson 101. Let's understand, every time India was invaded, the invaders came to the north. So we, the Punjabis, have been bearing the brunt for a long time, the northwestern frontier. So an average Punjabi, and I can take the liberty of also taking Mr. Chopra into this conversation, we're warriors, we're resilient people, we're hardworking people, we're ethical people.
Okay.
So what happens is when they sell their land and move to Canada and then they have to move back, unfortunately, that same resilience becomes counterproductive because nobody wants to demote themselves and they end up staying in a lot of misery. So that's one. And number two is, I don't think this is the end of the Canadian thing at all.
Okay.
It is only for people who want the wrong reasons. You get the good place, you go through a legit, you go through a legit manner, they will still absorb you. The extra went there only because they wanted to get into Canada, could be an issue.
Fair enough. We leave it at that. Completely out of time in the conversation. Surinder Singh Lali, foreign affairs expert for Canada and the US. Thank you so much for taking time out to be with us. And Ricky Chopra, international lawyer and immigration expert. Thank you for being with us here on In Your Interest. And with that, it's a wrap here from my side. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishna Kumar signing off.
Water overflowing, what could it be?
After a blockbuster first season, where corporate giants and industry leaders rule the court, TV9 Network presents the ultimate corporate badminton championship Season 2. A battle of skill, speed and supremacy, with a massive 5 lakh rupee prize pool across categories. At Pulela Gopichand Badminton Academy, Gachibowli, Hyderabad, from the 15th to the 17th May 2026. The court is set. Let the battles begin. Catch the action only on TV9 Network. To register, log on to www.tv9x.com.
Associate sponsor KL deemed to be university. Venue partner